we're all here because we thought it would be a good idea to start a podcast, or at least a collection of our ramblings, I think, right?
I agree. Paige
Um,
had she had some material she wanted to start off with.
all
I
right, bring it on.
I mean, typically when you do that, it's because you have something you have to say.
I thought we talked ahead of time and you had to,
No, there was no talking ahead of time.
This is what I want you to say. Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, so what are we what are we discussing?
No clue.
What's the topic?
well, I thought we were gonna talk about kind of the current market and what's going on. What we're
Yeah.
seeing out there.
So let me introduce everybody. Paige is what are you, a 10 year agent now at Compass? How many years have you been in the business now, Paige?
I've been in the business 10 years.
10 years. Okay. And Mike's been in the business, what, at least 15 and licensed in 2 different states?
Yep.
So Mike's the broker of HomeSmart in Palm Springs in the Coachella Valley, and he's got something like 15 on up there years of experience across Southern California and Arizona as well. And my name's Sean LaRue. I have 17 years experience at Franklin Loan Center, and I'm also licensed in California and Arizona for real estate, among many states licensed for loans. But yeah, so what is going on in the market right now? What is the current state of the market? I mean, I think the hottest topic, and everybody will probably attest to this, is the lawsuit, right?
Mhm.
Mike, is that kind of what you?
Yeah, I mean that's a hot topic, but I would also say I'm noticing more and more there's just a lot of agents that aren't really paying attention. You know, they're working on deals they're working on and kind of the things that are right in front of them, but not necessarily looking at the bigger picture of how that may impact the industry. It's undetermined, obviously, what that impact will be, but I think it's definitely worth paying attention to, not focusing all your attention on it. But I literally had an agent in the office yesterday that the topic came up and they asked, what lawsuit? And I was like, wow, where it feels like it's every headline, right? But
Really up in your face.
then they also asked, well, what holiday party? Like the one that you've gotten 9 emails about, right? So it's kind of, but some of that stuff is not the product of the market we're in. It's just how do people approach their business
Right.
and what they're paying attention to.
So what's going on with the lawsuit? What is the lawsuit? What's going on with it? What do we know right now?
Well, they
On that?
had a verdict and found in favor of the sellers, the plaintiffs, that they would be awarded money from these brokerages that chose not to settle. I think what's extending this a little bit further was the unknown right now. Okay, so this lawsuit is over, right? Well, no, it's not. Now you've given them the fuel to name other brokerages, which now they have, to create a new lawsuit naming other brokerages. And so that to me is a little bit more uncertain for the marketplace. It's a little bit scary, I will say, because before it was, there's been some brokerages named. Now this is giving them the fuel to name anyone who's ever had or negotiated commissions. And what?
I just wanted to frame it a little bit better. So the state of Missouri is it has the lawsuit, right? And it's a class action lawsuit that sellers who have sold property and paid commissions from the years, I think, what, 2016 to current, that those commissions, the 3% or whatever was paid on the buyer commission side, that it wasn't disclosed properly, that the sellers are a protected class, and they, I mean, it's all
They were forced or coerced to pay the buyer agent commission.
right.
Yes.
Right. So that's what's being debated right now. And so a bunch of
Well,
brokerages
it's not
settled.
really being debated. There was a judgment.
Went to trial, and the plaintiffs won the trial, won the case.
Sure.
$1.8 billion settlement, roughly.
Mhm.
Right. And I heard that because of the type of lawsuit it is, it gets tripled. So we're really talking about almost $5.8 billion. And so the question is, what's the future of buyer's agent commissions, how that's going to get disclosed? What else are we hearing?
Well, I mean, now that they have awarded this, they're able to go after other agents, or other brokerages rather, small, big, whatever it is. Now that they know that they've won one, what's to keep them from going after others and getting the same results? So yes, it's one state currently, but it could mean others jumping in and it being a bigger issue. I think for our industry right now, where the unsettling part is agents are looking for someone to blame for this. I think NAR is taking a really big hit on that front. Whether or not agents want to agree, but I think, they need to do a little bit more research on what NAR actually does for us versus this one blip that's happening right now. Because there is a lot of talk in the industry. What do they do for us? Why do we pay them? Without actually diving into what they do to support us in the industry.
You mean NAR? What NAR does to support?
Correct.
Okay, their members.
What would you say, Mike?
Yes, I would agree. I would add that I think, what does the future look like based on this ruling? I believe there will be a lengthy appeal process where, that will get dragged through court. So kind of what the overall outcome is will be at some extended time in the future. But in the meantime, as Paige indicated, we are seeing, what you would call a copycat lawsuits coming against other large brokerages and in other states. In fact, I saw today, I believe I saw today, I don't know when this came out or when the news broke, but a new lawsuit was filed from the buyer side. So the class action lawsuits that we're discussing are seller side issues. Now there's a large lawsuit that's come out from the buyer side. I don't know the details of that, but I just believe that this kind of stuff is going to kind of continue, being worked through the court system. But in the immediate term, I don't know that it really impacts our business so much, meaning nothing is changing outside of kind of procedurally, where it is no longer, well, it never was a requirement via the MLS to offer compensation, right? It's just the fear being and concern. If you don't, you might not get any showings on your listing.
So typically the listing agreement or the agreement that you have as a seller with an agent, let's kind of break it down for everybody. That agreement is that they're paying you as the listing agent a portion of the commission, and they're paying the buyer's agent a portion of the commission to sell the property, right?
Yep.
And
That's right.
it's
Yeah, but
all
let's-
negotiable, right?
Yes, and
Yep.
let's put this into perspective. When, like, say, for instance, I'm sitting down at a listing presentation, I'm negotiating that commission. Okay, I'm negotiating a commission with the seller, whether that be 4%, 5%, 6%, whatever that is. And then from that negotiation, I am letting the seller know I am giving a certain percentage to that buyer's agent in my marketing.
And this is all disclosed in the listing agreement.
And this is
Mhm.
all disclosed in the listing agreement. They have to initial, they have to sign off, so if I'm saying my services, in order to hire me for my services, I will take no less than 5%. But out of that 5%, I'm offering a buyer's agent 2.5%.
Right.
So how is that not negotiating? How is that
Right.
not giving an option? That seller could say, no, I'm choosing not to pay
Well,
you that. No, I'm choosing not to negotiate. I will find another realtor, which we've all been up against.
Right, but that is, I would question, it's a good point you're making, but that's based on the California listing agreement as we know it. This lawsuit was filed in Missouri, where
Right.
we don't know what those documents entail and how they go about
That's
presenting that to the seller. I mean, I feel in California, this has already been on the discussion table, right? We have our agreement set as such. Although, the question I feel becomes when you're saying I do 5% and then I offer this amount, we don't need to talk about the numbers specifically, but here's the total number. We offer half of that or whatever amount to the buyer side, right?
Mhm.
Is it required to offer anything to the buyer side? And how is that articulated to sellers? That it's
Well,
not required.
Well, I think that's what this is all about, like a future change so that the sellers, I guess the argument is that the sellers are paying, which is kind of a backwards argument, but the sellers are paying more in commission on their property. It shouldn't be coming out of the seller side. The buyer should be paying for it. The buyers are upset that they're paying too much, or the 3% over, which is included in the commission. But then like the change is that you're gonna have to pay it up front. Am I understanding this whole thing right?
Yeah, I would say yes for the most part. I don't not necessarily about pay it up front from the buyer side. If you're alluding
Well,
to the buyer
in the
lawsuit,
in the future, if this
yeah,
change goes through,
then
then the seller, what would be common in the market would be that the seller would only pay for the seller's listing agent fee. The buyer's agent would be paid for by the buyer
yep,
directly.
yep.
But that makes another barrier to entry because you have to come up with that cash now in order to pay your agent, right?
Yep.
Well, I think this is a perfect
Out of
segue
pocket payment.
because you are a lender, Sean. Do you think that there is programs out there where they're going to be able to put those agent fees into their loan program?
So it's like closing costs, where we always have to mark like reoccurring, non-reoccurring closing costs. It has to be allowed if the law changes to one where it's not legal for a seller to pay a buyer's fee, which I think, I don't know that a buyer's agent commission, I think that's a little extreme. I think the disclosure is important. I think at the end of the day, we'll see people still opt in to offer that because they want to get their property sold and they want as few barriers to entry as possible. The way we structure closing costs is with those non-reoccurring and reoccurring closing costs, right? But I don't know that a bank is going to let you finance that in even if you get a credit, because we need to keep it all on the seller side of the settlement statement. And what's really happening, think about this, is it's a balance sheet issue, is it's an expense. So from the seller right now, and so it's a non-taxable event. You get taxed on it because it's commission, but now it's an expense less to the seller, right? Okay, but now we're having to come in with post-tax dollars with the cash up front, which makes it even more more of a barrier to entry. So it's just interesting. I think the way the cards are going to fall, I think they're still going to allow it. I can't see a market where they make it illegal for the seller to pay a buyer's agent's commission.
I don't think it's gonna be made illegal, but I think that the things that we're facing right now is, well, we're having to do a buyer broker agreement, and what does that buyer broker agreement say for the buyer? And if the seller is offering, say, 1%, but you have an agreement with your buyer for 2.5%, where does that 1.5% come from in order to close that deal?
Yeah, and I believe what that will create just kind of more negotiating, more concessions being made where a buyer's agent may end up working for less, than some sort of preset commission that's already been negotiated by the listing agent with the seller. It's going to be multiple more rounds of negotiation, and they might only end up with 1% or whatever amount the seller is willing to pay. Right.
Well, I mean, it's almost weird because it's almost got to go into an escrow account. I mean, how many times have you given up a commission just to make a deal go together? And I mean, you start off with the carrot, and then that carrot gets smaller and smaller as the deal goes on. But I mean, if we're hoping that they're going to have some money for your commission at the end of the day, I can tell you as a lender, we're going to have to make sure we got a gift, document it, source it. I don't know what all will, what that'll look like, but it's definitely makes it a little more risky for an agent on whether or not they're going to get paid and what they're going to get paid, right?
Right. And more challenging when they're, kind of determining the home. Well, I don't know if it's more challenging. It's about determining the homes that they're going to be showing and, trying to represent their client on, right? Some of them are going to pay more than others, right? As where the way the current structure is, there's kind of some kind of base minimums that are being set forth by the negotiating skills of the listing agent. Right. So that part I'm kind of curious about, where, it's already pre-negotiated for buyer's agents, and that's not going to be the case anymore moving forward. They're going to have to be the ones negotiating that,
Right.
and or settling for whatever is being offered. We've seen that already in our marketplace with certain rentals and seasonal rentals where, they're offering a commission, but it's a very low commission. I've seen it as low as $100, and
to place a short-term rental.
Yep. And what ends up happening is the agents typically just refer that to the listing agent and let them handle it, because it's just not either worth their time or won't even cover the brokerage fees that they would be required to pay. But it's neither here nor there. I just think the bottom line is there's going to be changes coming to that buyer brokerage side. That part we do know. And my advice to everyone, both consumers and agents, is to just make sure you're paying attention, not to all of the headlines, but make sure you're paying attention, to the details of what is happening and how that may impact the future.
So what are the main places that they can look for these details? I would assume on a loan estimate or closing disclosure or your settlement statement. Where and when are you paying attention to these certain things when you're listing a property?
Yes, absolutely. When you're listing a property, if you're a seller, you know, you want to make sure that you have clarification on the total commission you're paying and how that's being allocated, right? And if you're wanting to hire your listing agent and only pay a certain commission, understand that it's totally negotiable. It is net today. It always has been, and it will continue to be fully negotiable with no predetermined or preset minimums in any way. And understand that different brokerage models operate differently as well. So that is something that there are some overlays that may apply, right? But something to consider. The bottom line is all brokerages are created equal. With this reality, it's always negotiable, right? And if you choose to offer a commission to the buyer's broker, which I recommend because it brings more people to the table, right? And stats show it ends up netting you more money to do that. But the bottom line is it's a negotiable fact, and you are not required to offer compensation to the buyer's agent or brokerage. Paige, I know you have more on that.
Per the contract right now, say that again. You're not required to offer a buyer agent commission as the seller
Correct.
in the state of California.
In the state of California.
So in the state of California, you do not have to offer a buyer agent commission
Right.
when you list your home.
Zero is a number. So you have to put a number in.
So
but
it's
zero is a
optional, like
number.
you don't have to do that, like you don't have to, but you know, then how many agents are gonna show your house or say this is the one or, right? I mean, that's the risk. That's the downside, right?
Correct. It's kind of exposure in the marketplace, you know, and getting the activity necessary to get your home sold at the highest possible price. You know, the same story that it's always been at the end of the day.
Is it the old adage, like the FISBO, like I'm just gonna put a sign in my yard and I can just do it myself? And I asked somebody recently, I'm like, why don't you just put it like a for sale or for rent sign? She's like, because all the exposure is online. I'm like,
Yeah.
the chances of you finding somebody that's gonna buy or rent your house that's a neighbor is really slim. I mean, it's not that way in the Coachella Valley, it seems. It seems like everybody's got a friend moving in next door, but in general, you know, I think that's interesting.
You gotta do it all. Paige, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that agents need to buckle up because I think we've gotten a little bit too comfortable about these on a buyer's agent side about having the compensation already negotiated for us. I think this is going to change up our industry a little bit because agents that don't either have the experience, agents that don't have a more experienced agent to lean on and get some guidance from, brokers who are not stepping up and guiding their agents on how to deal with this. We're going to start to see a massive exodus of realtors because they just don't know how to overcome this portion of the contract.
Yeah.
Some
It's
of
all
us
new role
are
playing,
great
right?
right? But sometimes some of us are really good negotiators. Some of us are not really good negotiators, but we work hard, right? And I think for those who don't have a strength in negotiating or showing where their value is or telling someone where their value is in order to get the compensation up front, that's going to be difficult.
Having the conversations up front to educate them on what's going on. Yeah, if they legally will, yeah, if it turns out that sellers cannot legally pay a buyer's agent commission, then the buyers will have to sign an agreement up front with their agent, right? And try to have that agreement. Otherwise, if you don't have the agreement and conversation in place, then you're just kind of stuck holding the bag unless
pretty
the
much,
sellers.
I mean, it's going to be almost like buyer's agents becoming seller's agents. I mean, we all do it. Some of us are, though, haven't had a listing. I've never had to sit down 100 times, 200 times to negotiate a listing agreement, right? And so now you're going to ask them to do that with a buyer. How often do you see us agents meeting a buyer at their house? One, meeting the buyer in our office. Two, to have a conversation prior to going to a listing. It doesn't happen.
It used to. How many years ago was that?
I mean, since I've been an agent, which is a decade now, I mean, I was never.
So you're not meeting for coffee and going over their wants and needs lists like House Hunters International and what everybody sees, they go in and
It
pick
depends on,
off a menu.
typically it's an over the phone conversation. Oh, what are you looking for? Let me set up a portal. Oh, you want to go see that house on Saturday? Of course. Is there anything else that interests you? You're trying to get them into as many homes as possible. So maybe they like something and they write an offer after that weekend. I mean, that is the market we just came out of. And
Right.
so now you're dealing with new agents who are newer to the business. And I'm saying within the last 2 to 4 years, maybe even 5 years, that have never, ever met with a client in their office or at their home before showing them a property, getting something in writing from them saying, I'm representing you. So who's going to be teaching that?
Well, and how many different types of buyer agent commission agreements are you going to have? You're going to have an exclusive. Are you going to have if they buy any property anywhere for 12 months? Is it if they find the property and you don't show it to them? I mean, how is all that going to work? And we love loyalty.
Loyalty.
Mike, what are your Mike? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, yeah, I think it's going to be all of the above. My thoughts are, I believe it will be very similar to the way that an agent takes a listing, where they show up and meet with the seller and give their whole presentation, and try to negotiate their commission. They'll be doing that. They just won't be necessarily negotiating the buyer commission. They'll be articulating the value of hiring them to sell your home. Buyer's agents are going to have to take on that persona as well. They will be, having a buyer's presentation with their client with a full presentation and articulating their value. I believe it probably will develop into kind of a menu of options like you might offer a seller now, meaning, hey, for 6%, I do all of these things. For 5%, I do a little less type of arrangement where, if you're talking your buyer into paying you 3%, you better have a war chest full of ammunition of all of the things you're going to do to get them their dream home at a dream price and far exceed all of their expectations. Where right now, most buyers agents don't have anything like that. They don't even know what they do in order to help you. You go online and send me the home and I'll meet you there on Saturday, right? And they know that they're getting this certain commission because it's being offered in the MLS. They don't have to articulate value or even be good at their job. All they got to do is meet them there Saturday. And, if they
And write it up.
they need some skills in a lot of cases, where I'm lumping in a bunch of different personalities and situations, but the point is the same. Buyers agents are going to have to really develop their skill sets and be able to articulate that value, in a professional manner that will result in that client signing whatever form of buyer broker agreement, that they can get them to sign, and at whatever guaranteed commission rate they can get. And I do the quotes, meaning that even if they agree to 3%, you know, I have concerns about how that will be upheld. Right? Because if they say they're going to pay you 3%, but they don't have the money to do that in the end, you know, how are we going to navigate that? So I think there's a lot of loose ends, you know, as it relates to this. However, the bottom line is the same, you know, sharpening skills, articulating value, and coming up with your value proposition, right? The same thing I look at Paige, the same thing you've developed on the listing side, you know, you're going to need the same thing on the buyer side, because you're going to be presenting to them, you know, on why they should hire you. And you know what, you know, knowing you personally, that they should hire you, right? They need you. You do present value. You will save them money at the end of the day, and also get them the house that they're wanting, right? So it's like all of this stuff is true. It's just about navigating the proper way to present it, you know, articulate the value, and get those agreements signed where everyone understands what's going on and how agents are compensated. So that's kind of my thoughts on how this will kind of shake out as we move forward.
Yeah. Ditto.
But I would shift gears real quick. I know we're winding down on our time. Sean, a question on kind of rates. We're hearing a lot of information, but I'm just wondering quickly about where are rates today, and what do you anticipate over the next 30 to 60 days to end the year?
You know, December, usually it gets a little interesting towards the end of the year. I'm actually just gonna go to bank rate to keep it consistent. My rates are actually pretty close to
You
those.
there?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
There we go.
There you are.
Okay. I was just saying I'm gonna check out the rates on bank rate because that's always fun. 30-year fix right now is 7.83 at no points, and a 15 years like 7.1. But not too many people are taking the short-term loans right now. Arms are about a 5-1 arms about 6.98, and FHA's 6.8. I just quoted one at 6.75 this morning, so that's about right.
Well,
I
what are
think
your thoughts on, sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but what are your thoughts on actually trying to negotiate actual point buy down, not go to a 2-1 buy down, not go to a 3-1 buy down program, but physically buy down the points?
it depends on what your personality is and if you're willing to stomach it. But right now, I wouldn't put any more money into junk fees, junk costs, or any kind of long-term investment because, I mean, we've already seen since October 20th, we kind of hit the bottom of where, or the top of where interest rates were, and that was about 8.3 or so. And they've been coming down steadily almost every single day since October 20th. So just like I had anticipated through, I would assume the end of November, interest rates are going to continue to come down. And then what happens every year at the end of the year in December, we have a stock market sell-off, money goes into bonds, and interest rates go back up temporarily through the end of the year. And then we start seeing interest rates come back down, and the market come back alive, I would say about January 15th, January 20th. But that's what I've
So
seen
you
over the years.
anticipate favorable rates for the next 30 days plus, and then possibly increase
Yeah.
towards the end of the year, and then kind of back to where we are into
I would
January.
say if you have to close by the end of the year, if you've got a 1031 exchange, or if you're a buyer, and you want to get it done, now's actually one of the best times to do it. I think, we saw this in the recession we were kind of in the U shape. We always say this, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And if we're even close to, coming out of that bottom of or top of where rates are, whatever kind of U shape we're doing, if you have enough time in the market, right now is a great time because there's blood in the streets. Everybody's afraid. Nobody thinks they can sell their home. Every seller's scared that the price is going to drop and drop fast. A bunch of people are saying that, they think values are off another 5% or so. And I'm like, that sounds like a short-term buy down for 3% and a 2% closing cost concession.
Mhm.
Boom. That's what that sounds like
Negotiate
to
that.
me. Negotiate that in. Boom, there's your deal. Can we still get it appraised? That's the big question. You want more than that? Make it a little sweeter deal, because what are we at? 97% of list right now? Are we about 3% off of list, which gives us the opportunity to negotiate a little bit and get the seller or buyers to feel like they're getting a sweet deal? I mean, we're all right there, but how much more can we give back? How long are people with 3% interest rates going to make sure they're making that mortgage payment?
Yeah.
I think there's a big opportunity for a lot of debt consolidation, even at these rates, by the way. If you've owned a home for the last 5 years, if you have a car that you want to get paid off that has a high interest rate, or if you have credit cards over 10% rate, I've been doing a lot of math lately and it pencils out. So if you have any questions about debt consolidation or anything like that, if you have owned a home for the last 5 years or more, I'd be happy to talk to you guys about that. And I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Great info.
Did I cut you off, Paige?
No, I was just, my thought was looking at the overall picture here of what you just painted. Also, people with buyers that are currently on the fence, they should be looking at, do I want to be trying to negotiate the best deal possible right now, whether that be, the price, buying down interest rate points to get the deal, okay, or in the next 30 days having a run where interest rates have dropped down, where it's now becoming another competitive market for a few weeks.
Dude,
And you're
as soon as
against
those rates drop a
multiple-
0.5%, you're going to be
seriously,
competing with
multiple
everybody.
offers. Exactly. And
And
so
what's going to happen to values? They're going to go up,
you're going
right?
to
They're
go
going to
up.
get bid
So
up.
why not take this next couple of weeks? And what's it going to hurt you to try to negotiate the best deal that you can possibly get right now?
Yeah.
It
was
versus
funny. I've
this.
heard the most people buying real estate lately are real estate agents and people in the industry because they all know it's a good time to get settled in when everybody's, not that busy doing everything. And I like what Warren Buffett says, it's best to move when there's blood in the street. I think it's a great time to negotiate right now. I mean, you're not competing against anybody, and the
And
only
I
thing they
think
can
the
say is no.
sellers that really need to get out, that really need to sell or have a second home that they're ready to offload at the moment, this is the time to negotiate with those people. Now, it's not going to be everyone. Maybe the ones will hold off for a few weeks and hope and cross their fingers that another listing in their neighborhood doesn't come on so that they have the competitive edge. But as we know, there's people out there that have perfect real estate timing, and
Every single time.
right, they come on the market when it's hot, they come off the market when it's not. So
That's right.
Paige, how can people get in touch with you?
in touch with me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's very easy. My phone number is 760-851-8514. Instagram, leader of the pack 5. Email Paige Sells 24/7 written out at Gmail. So pretty easy.
Awesome. Mike, do you want people calling you For
All
all
right,
your
if you guys want to
broker
call me, I
problems.
would say Google, you see my
What
name on there,
form,
Mike
what
Jeppson,
form
Google
do I
me.
use? Yeah,
You just Google me, you can find me, reach out. I'm happy to chat at any time, answer any questions.
awesome.
But I look forward to the next call.
Should be a good call. I think this is great. I don't want to get it any more convoluted than this. This was awesome. I think it's a great collection of ideas. I'm just gonna end it there. You guys are awesome, and we'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
Take
All
care.
right.
See you guys later.
Later.